Humanity Matters.
Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Bali Lerner, on Unmasked, Unfiltered, and Unapologetic on HMTV. I'm here today with my wonderful guest, Lenny Gold, executive producer of The Blind Spot. Welcome, Lenny.
Thank you,
We're so
Bali.
happy to have you here today.
Great to be here.
So, Lenny, before we jump in and discuss this incredible movie, Blind Spot, I'd like to know a little background about you and a little history about yourself, if you can share it with us, please.
Okay, so I got to try to do it without getting emotional.
Okay.
And we'll give it a try. So I grew up in a pretty traditional, common, conservative Jewish home neighborhood in Far Rockaway, Queens. Being Jewish was just like part of everyday life. It wasn't something I gave much thought about. I knew my family's background. I knew my father's family came from Lithuania. My mother's family came from Russia. Father's family came 1920. Mother's family was here longer. And I grew up with all Jewish friends. There was a Catholic community in Far Rockaway, but for the most part, the Catholic children went to parochial schools, so we didn't have much interaction with them. We did have interaction with black students, so it was basically Jews and blacks all the way through. I went to University of Pennsylvania. I went to NYU School of Law, began a law career. In 1981, I befriended an Israeli young man who was my age. And in June of '82, I found out that he was killed serving in his Golani Brigade unit in Lebanon.
I'm so sorry.
And it changed my life. I obviously didn't see it coming. And so the two feelings that hit me right away were obviously grief, and two was that could have been me. If my grandparents had stayed in Europe like his parents did and his grandparents did, they could have ended up in Israel. That could have been me, same age. So it started me on an odyssey that made me realize how connected we all are as Jews and how connected Jews are to the state of Israel, even if we are not Israeli. I became close with his parents, his siblings, their families, and basically we adopted each other. We became
beautiful.
Family. And then I have my own family in Israel that I got to know. And fast forward to getting married and having children, I vowed to myself that if I ever had a son, I would name him for my friend, and I did.
Wow, that's incredible.
I did. In fact, we have twin sons, and they're kind of both named for him because the other guy is one Hebrew letter removed from Elon. So then fast forward a little further, Elon ended up at Friends Seminary, the Quaker School in Manhattan. Great reputation, been around a long time.
This is one of your sons.
Yes,
that ended up
one
there.
was named for my friend.
Yep.
And when he was he started there in 6th grade. When he was in 8th grade, a friend of mine whose son was in the same class says, "Hey, I heard your kid gave it to Josh Silver in history class." I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, Josh compared Israel's treatment of Palestinians to the Nazis' treatment of Jews. And your son was the only kid who raised his hand and challenged him." Now, the school was about a third Jewish, so if there were 21 kids in the class, you figure there were 7 Jews. My son was the only one who challenged
Now,
it.
Lenny, what year was this?
2009.
2009.
2008-09 school year, so it might have been '08. And that started us on a odyssey of discovering what was really going on in that school. And my friend and I and other concerned Jewish parents got together and went to the school, went to the ADL, went to the AJC. The AJC turned out was already talking to the school at the school's behest because of some things that had happened. And apparently the school didn't tell the whole story to the AJC. And when we came along, the AJC said, "Oh, that's what's happening."
You know, it's interesting. Like what I'm hearing from you, this is going back 2008, 2009, and now with the rise of anti-Semitism and everything that is happening in the world today, the students goes either way. You know, again, some students will speak out, And a lot of students are scared to speak out. They're scared to speak out because of, in the classroom, maybe not only, maybe they'll be treated differently from their peers, but some of them are also scared to speak out because they're worried that perhaps their grades or their work will be affected negatively as well. And we're seeing that not only in every level of K through 12, but we're also seeing that in college as well. And unfortunately, I do want to thank you because your movie is, and we'll get into it a little bit further, obviously, but is a real inspiration and a real inspiration for your son, which is, I think, where we're heading here, to the impact that one voice can really make, and the importance of standing up, because how wonderful that your son stood up, and I think we'll get into what that trickled into, but wouldn't it have been wonderful if more voices and more people stood up? And
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit on a lot of really important points there, and they're in the film too. But getting back to my son, yes, he exhibited tremendous courage for doing what he did, and that wasn't the last time he did something like that. But it took a toll. It took a toll on him. It took a toll on us as a family. And one of the reasons I made the film was to try to spare other families the trauma that we experienced by arming them with information and inspiration to do what needs to be done to combat the ignorance and the hatred and the hypocrisy that permeates this phenomenon that we're seeing K through 12 and in higher ed. You know, in Blind Spot, we see one of the students, Yasmina Hebsian, saying that when she first encountered a professor doing what Josh Silver did at Friends Seminary, she couldn't muster up the courage to say something. And she talks about how she connected with a friend of hers who was in the class, who's also in the film. He was speaking out, and so they joined together with one other student, and they started a movement at Tulane. But you also see in the film concerns about repercussions for speaking out, and so when people see Blind Spot, it is important for them to realize that, number one, these are all undergraduates, many of them away from home for the first time. They didn't sign up to be warriors for the Jewish people. They signed up for an education.
right,
And then they were confronted, maybe for the first time in their lives, with this type of hatred, and then the indifference of the school officials and the teachers and the administration officials who reacted with indifference at best to these complaints from students who did the right thing. They went to the proper channels. They went to the people who were entrusted to protect them, or so they thought. And then they found that this problem went deeper than just the teacher who was committing the acts in question. And so, we show how these students were able to obtain help from other sources, from outside sources, like attorneys, like journalists. And
I think that's a very important, really a most important piece, for students and for adults as well, to walk away with, to understand that you have certain rights, and you have resources and people behind you that will support you, and that no one, should be treated this way. If we take the word anti-Semitism, if we take the word Jews when it's used negatively, the hatred of Jews, if you replace them with any other group, it would not be allowed. So why should it be allowed when, against Jews? Obviously it shouldn't. But unfortunately, because the other side is so loud, and they're so loud in spreading their propaganda and lies and hatred, it is very intimidating. So I think that, to me, a huge walk away from the film is making students and adults both understand there are resources and people to help you so that you can speak up. And you don't have to do this alone. And it is so important to do so. Because, if you're silent, that means somebody else is also silent. And that means somebody is getting away with the lies and the propaganda and really spreading hate, which is not beneficial to society, to anyone in our society. So you started this really because of a personal mission, really. And I believe that, it's b'sheretz. I mean, listen, when you think that your son was named after, your good friend who really was the drive behind you connecting to your Judaism, it kind of came full circle. What I find really especially interesting is that you started this, this was way before 10/7. And I think that at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center, we often show a lot of films, powerful films about college anti-Semitism, and we try to educate and enrich and explain to people what's really happening on these college campuses, and also the administrators that are helping the cause and those that are doing the right thing, because you have a mix. But a lot of these films are really in a post-10/7 world. So the truth is, it didn't start in 10/7, right? The other side just got louder, and they somehow feel emboldened, and they feel that they can say whatever they want without any punishment, even if what they're saying is not accurate. So I think what's very interesting, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about it, is about the journey of the movie, is you really go into this issue of anti-Semitism on campuses pre-10/7 through after 10/7. So can you talk a little bit about that journey and that process?
Yeah, sure. And, the double standards that you referred to are why we named the film Blind Spot, because there is a blind spot towards Jews, and that's what we're up against here. And, of course, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 doesn't discriminate between one group or another. Jews are protected just like every other protected group, and we're entitled to the same rights and the same enforcement of the law. The journey evolved over time, but the one constant was we knew that there was a serious problem. It wasn't being reported in the mainstream media, and most Americans, including most Jews, didn't know about it. So we decided this was a serious enough problem to merit a film to educate people. Because if you don't know, you're not even going to be aware that there is a problem that you should be standing up against. We were almost done filming by October 7th. Wow. We had just finished an interview in less than 3 weeks before October 7th. We still had a couple more scheduled. So obviously, we had to take stock and pivot once October 7th happened. But by that time, we had already interviewed so many students, and Richie Torres, and Dion Pierre, the reporter for the Allgemeiner, and Tanya Tetlow, the amazing president of Fordham University, who is a school administrator who is doing the right thing by placing emphasis on education about the truth, about Jewish history and Jewish religion and Jewish culture and the state of Israel. They have one of the best Jewish studies departments in the country at Fordham University.
I applaud them for doing this, and everybody should be. But
yes, and so we wanted to include them because they serve as a model for what other schools can and should do. You don't have to be a Jesuit or a Catholic or a religious school to be values-based in your approach to education.
Just human.
Just
humanity.
Just human, and just be committed to the truth, and having open dialogue in a civil and respectful way. If the anti-Israel students and faculty had been voicing their opinions in a civil manner all those years, we wouldn't have made the film. It wasn't what they were saying as much as how they were expressing themselves. And in the film, we have lawyers explaining the difference in legal terms between speech and conduct. And while speech might be protected under the First Amendment, the consequences of the speech, if you're inciting violence, that's not protected.
Which we saw across so many campuses
right.
After October 7th.
And if you're preventing other students from entering classrooms and entering buildings and getting the education that they are there to get, that's also against the law. So it's important for people to realize it, because one of the things we want to achieve with Blind Spot is to give people the tools that they need to take the appropriate action. It's just like after 9/11, we all remember the expression, if you see something, say something.
Correct.
Well, it's the same here. We are a democracy. We have elected officials who are accountable to us as voters. Contact them. Contact school board officials, school officials, the media, write op-eds, join social media groups that have this issue as their central concern, like Mothers Against College Antisemitism on Facebook.
Right.
They have over 60,000 members.
Right. We work very closely with Mothers Against College Antisemitism, and they have been an incredible tool for people to come together, not only of Jewish backgrounds, but of all backgrounds. And because, again, we are, and I can say, as parents, we could be completely different. We can have, our backgrounds can be different, our religion, everything can be different about us. But when you're a parent, you're a parent, right?
Yes.
So I'm so grateful. I'm so saddened that your son went through what he went through, but I'm grateful that you took it upon yourself to really have such an impact based on his experience, in the hope that others, would be in a better situation, that the school would change, and not even just that school, but the changes would occur. Because I think the bigger picture is, once one academic institution is aware that they can't get away with it, then the others will follow. So that's really, there's a ripple effect here. And I think that Blind Spot is really all about that. It's the ripple effect. Like the students that you have speaking, I'm truly so excited to have Sabrina Sofer join us on the panel Wednesday night after the movie. And she is such an inspiration. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about her role in the movie and your working relationship with her.
Yeah, sure. Sabrina, of course, just graduated in the spring of 2025 from George Washington University. We knew about her through the reporting of Dion Pierre from the Allgemeiner, who is in the film. He's one of 5 extraordinary non-Jewish allies who are in Blind Spot. The other 4 being Tanya Tetlow of Fordham, Richie Torres, a congressman from the Bronx, Carly Gamble, the attorney for Stand With Us, and an extraordinary student from Tulane named Raymel Green.
Amazing.
And I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to spoil anything, but they are each extraordinary in their own way, and they each come from a different walk of life. But Sabrina was already a campus leader in the fight against anti-Semitism at GW, which was pretty bad when she was only a sophomore. And you'll see in Blind Spot, footage of the interview we conducted with her when she was a sophomore, and then she reappears in the film several times after, including post 10/7.
I can't wait to have her. Actually, she's going to be joining me on a podcast on Wednesday before the theater. So I'm really excited to have her speak at the panel and join us here as well. So on a different note. Obviously, as the executive producer, you had the interviews. You made a decision to definitely very purposefully to have the students be the stars of the show. You have politicians and you have other people there and involved, but certainly the students are the voice of the movie. Something else that really sticks out in the movie is the music. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, let me.
And I see you're getting emotional again, so I'm sorry.
That's
I don't
okay.
know if I should be apologizing or grateful. To be honest, this is my first podcast on Unmasked Unfiltered Unapologetic, and I think there's a reason. After you and I spoke, you really, I feel like you are exactly the title of this podcast. You are all about being unmasked, unfiltered, and unapologetic, and true to the cause, and you've done such an incredible job. So I know this is an emotional conversation we're having. This is your baby, and there's so much of you is in this, and what you're fighting for. So but I think that music always touches our soul.
Well, the music has been an important part of my life for all of my life. I started playing the piano at 7, and I, shifted over from classical to jazz as a teenager. And so jazz is my first love in music, but it's not my only love of music. And I was committed to having a great soundtrack in this film, if possible, to help tell the story and advance the story. So in the film, and I would recommend that if people watch it at home, you watch it on your best sound system, because we have everything from Chopin to Israeli pop to cantorial to jazz to Dr. Seuss to klezmer. And I'll just tell a quick story about the Dr. Seuss song because it has no apparent direct connection with the Jewish people. Dr. Seuss was not Jewish, and the performers on this recording are not Jewish. But the song is an anti-bullying song that Dr. Seuss wrote in the late 50s. And I think it was for some kind of movie project that may or may not have ever been produced. But it's an anti-bullying song. It's called Just Because We're Kids. And, of course, in that way, it's all about what Blind Spot is about.
So powerful.
And the vocalist on that recording, Dee Bell, who is not Jewish, gave us the license to use the recording at no charge because she supported what we were trying to do and how we were going to use the song. So
that's incredible, and that's what this is all about. At the end of the day, we're fighting an uphill, sometimes feels like an uphill battle, fighting anti-Semitism, fighting the propaganda and this horrible, some of the horrific misuse of even Holocaust terms, right? That's being used against us, weaponized against the Jewish people. But then on the flip side, along this journey, I personally have found, and you certainly have found, the beauty in humanity, that has really come forward, and what an incredible, credible proof of that. The fact that you were able to use this music and add that into this powerful film is...
Well, without spoiling anything, there was an intent to display both visual and musical beauty in at least one of the cuts of music in the film. I'll leave it at that. But we're very proud of the music. My father was an accomplished klezmer clarinetist, and his music plays over the closing credits. So I urge people, when you watch the film, watch it to the very end. My father is accompanied by the great pianist Lee Musiker, who was Tony Bennett's musical director, to the end, and he was featured on the CBS program that was recorded at Radio City with Lady Gaga. So that was my father with Lee, and my father's lifelong friend, Donnie Robbins on trumpet, with compositions that I think most Jewish people will recognize. And in between, I think people are going to be surprised. In some places, we have amazing cantorial music from Nathaniel Herstick, the cantor at the Hampton Synagogue in West Hampton Beach, who has become a friend, and he's one of the world's leading cantors. And his father, Naftali Herstick, they're both Israeli, and Naftali just passed away a year ago, and Nathaniel was intimately involved in the selection of the recordings and where they play in the film, and he's thrilled, which thrills me, but I'm also thrilled because those two segments which play back to back are the ones that still get me emotional when I see the film, and I've seen it 30 times.
Right, so. I'm sure. Well, I'm looking forward. I have watched it, but like you said, you can every time you watch it, you pick up something new each time. I'm excited that we are hosting it at Manhasset Cinemas on Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. this Wednesday, and we have quite an incredible lineup for a panel discussion afterwards, which you will be moderating, along with legislator Mazi Pilip. We have an legislator, Israeli. We have an Israeli diplomat joining us as well as one of your lead stars, Sabrina. And I think that conversation is going to be a real eye-opener for many of our audience members, and I'm really looking forward to it. Any final words before we sign off?
Well, I gave my father a plug, so now I'm going to give my mother a plug, and it ties in with the conversation we're going to have at Q&A. One of my mother's favorite expressions was, God helps those who help themselves. And that is one of the two overarching messages of Blind Spot. The other being, beware of the evil of indifference. And of course, we're going to have Yuval Donio Gideon at the panel, and I'm thrilled about that. He and I have had several deep conversations. And in one of them, I told him that I'm glad to finally see American Jews waking up to the need, it's a need
Agreed.
to stand up for ourselves and not rely on others to come to the rescue, whether they're legacy Jewish organizations or non-Jews. We have to stand up for ourselves. And I think Blind Spot shows that when we do that, others will come to our aid. And he said, well, yeah, great. It is something to the effect of, yeah, great. I mean, Israelis have known this from day one. We have to stand up for ourselves.
Exactly.
So I'm looking forward to, and it's great that we're going to have Yuval's perspective, because he can also recite chapter and verse all the facts and figures that refute all of the myths and lies that are constantly being thrown at not just Israelis, but Jews. Let's face it, we're talking about Jew hatred here. This is not, just directed towards changing who the prime minister of Israel is.
Exactly.
When people criticize the president of the United States, no matter who he is, they're not calling for the liquidation of the United States. They're just calling for a different president.
Exactly.
And that's the difference between the protests here and the protests in Israel. In Israel, where half the people want a change in the government, they don't want the state itself to go into the sea. They just want a different prime minister. But that's not what we're seeing here. When people are yelling from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, they're saying Palestine will be free of Jews. Globalized,
Exactly. And I think you hit such an important point where people are really just using and taking advantage of what's happening, within the Israeli society, and they're using it to their benefit and to basically to fuel their hatred of Jews. And that's the bottom line. Like here, that's the beauty actually of being part of a democratic country, right? So Israel is a democratic country, and they share our same Western values. And so when you are in a democratic country, yes, you have people that have mixed views about the government, and that's fine. But again, does not give you the right to say that you want a whole country erased and a whole group of people erased. And that's what's happening today. We see that, sadly, more and more today.
Yes.
And I definitely am going to use your mom's two lines, those two quotes. I will give her credit for it. But I think that's really a message for all of us. We have to stand up for ourselves, because it's not going away. If we learned anything, what we do here at the Holocaust Memorial Tolerance Center is that you cannot turn away. No. You cannot pretend it's not going to happen. You cannot think that if you're nice to the other side, maybe they'll be nice as well. At the end of the day, we have to stand up for ourselves. And like you said, once we do, then, only then, do we have the right to expect others to stand up with us?
Yes. We not only have the right, it will happen. That's something that I have a lot of faith in, because history has proven that when we do stand up for ourselves, we will have help. And as far as the evil of indifference goes, it ties in with standing up for ourselves. Because if we are indifferent, we can't expect others to not be indifferent. But the way to fight it is to stand up to it, is to shine light on it. The only way that these lies and hypocrisies and this hatred thrives is in the darkness of ignorance. When you shine the light of truth on what these people are saying, they wither.
Right.
They wither, and that's how it has to be fought. And we really, at this point, don't have a choice in terms of the future of the Jewish people, our children, our grandchildren.
And that is what we're doing here at HMTC. We educate so students of all backgrounds have the information, not only so that they know right from wrong, but that they can then share that. And we teach the students and adults as well. You have to be an upstander. The days of being a bystander, no one can afford to be a bystander today. Right. You have to be an upstander. You have to speak up. And I'm not, we always say somebody that's going towards you with hate and visceral, no, it may be too much to go against someone like that. But there are other people that are in the middle, that are in between, that are not sure, that are slightly misinformed. Start that conversation.
Right.
And everyone has the power to make a change. You can, just from a conversation with one student to another at lunchtime, or your student, for example, that didn't know how or was uncomfortable to speak up when something was happening in her classroom, but she ended up working with another student and found the power of working together with someone else and then was able to make a difference. So we all have the power to make a difference,
Yes.
to speak up, to reach out to our elected officials, to educate others, to become more educated ourselves, because, there are plenty of people, including Jews, that may not have all the facts. But come, reach out. I'm happy to connect you with people. Anyone that comes to me, I'll say, I'm happy to not only give you a tour of our center, but to connect you with educators that can give you more information, and so you can arm yourself and be knowledgeable. And I appreciate that, this movie really sheds light on the current situation. And again, it's so impactful. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more about with what you have to share along with our panel on Wednesday evening.
Thanks. I'll just leave you with this. That student who couldn't muster up the courage to stand up to her professor in 2023 ended up testifying quite powerfully and forcefully and impactfully before the House Education and Workforce Committee only a year later. And that footage is in the film. And I'll leave you with this, because you mentioned standing up for what's right. You and I talked about my late law school classmate, Lou Fidler, who was elected to the New York City Council for 3 consecutive terms. And he had an expression that I will never forget, and it's on the last frame of Blind Spot. When you do the right thing, you can never go wrong.
That's incredible. That's so well said, and words that I like to live by, because, again, the title here, unapologetic, it's true. If you have the truth behind you, and if you stick with the facts and you're honest and truthful, you can't go wrong. And even at times where it seems a little rocky, which it does for us at times, at the end we will prevail. Lightness over dark, always. Sometimes it's hard to see that, but I truly, truly do believe in that. So thank you so much for joining us here today. I appreciate all of you tuning in to Unmasked, Unfiltered, Unapologetic, and I'm very grateful for Lenny Gold, executive producer. You can check out his movie at blindspotmovie.com and join us this Wednesday evening at Manhasset Cinemas.